Today, we are going to be doing some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta going forward, and looking at AMC and GME as well. And if you'll notice right here, GME is up on the screen, and I'm going to talk about the implied volatility after we get through the stocks that we cover. So make sure to tune in for this, because right now, I think no one expects this. And this is kind of huge because on a week where no one expects this, especially the market makers with the implied volatility, something crazy actually can happen. So I've been paying attention to how the implied volatility has been coming down, and actually it will be a little easier to see a squeeze this week, so we'll be paying close attention. We're going to get into that in a little bit after we talk about all the stocks that we do cover on this channel. Okay, so now to remind you, the updated expected moves for the month are here. They are decent size, okay, 562.90, and then we do have 525.54 to the downside here. So we do give these out on Patreon. The link's down in the description for the weekly, the monthly, the daily ranges on Friday. We give these out on Patreon, and they are very useful because this is how high and how low the options market is pricing in it to go. So this is kind of what the market maker thinks is going to happen or is going to control what happens. So we'll pay attention to it. And this is very good to pay attention to. Okay, now the weekly ranges for this week are going to be 536.02 and 552.42, which is very interesting because we have only 4 trading days really this week, and we actually have a decent size range, not the biggest range, but a decent range. Okay, so what are we noticing from the daily chart here? Well, the daily chart is kind of telling us, hey, we are in a pullback, so most likely what we need to pay attention to going on into this week is going to be that weekly range. If we start to break that, the daily is saying it could pull back all the way down to 525.54, and I'm kind of leaning towards a situation like this one in the future that brings us into August or September. So we'll pay attention to it for now. What do we notice? We're in a pullback as far as the daily goes. Now, as we get into a 2-hour, we're going to see something a little bit scarier, and this is why I think we could see a little bit more downside unless we're able to buy up right here, right? We have to go through bearish and bullish cases here. So you also need to know the daily expected moves for tomorrow. If you're shorting those trading those shorter time frames, 548.63 to the upside, and you do have 539.81 to the downside. Now, these are expected moves. They don't work 100% of the time, but this is a 68% zone. So if we see a dramatic drop like this and then curl back up on this MACD right here, well, that would be a sign that 68% zone is going to be landed in, okay? So 68% of the time you land here, 32% of the time you see something a little crazier happen. And if we do see something a little crazier happen, then we can pay attention to our weekly expected move. That's why these are very, very helpful. They all work the same, just on different time frames, right? The daily, this is your 68% zone, but for the entire week, this is your 68% zone, and then you have those monthly expected moves as well. But let's talk about the 2-hour for a second, because we got a crossover very, very close to negative territory. Okay, this is very close to negative territory. So this is really saying to me as of right now, yes, this is overall just a pullback, but this is a bearish contrarian signal very close to that center line. We talk about the center line in the course a lot, and I think that is one of the sections that people really enjoy because it really helps them out. It's only $100 until July 7th, guys, so grab it while you can before the week starts. But notice this, it can go negative very quickly, so this actually could escalate pretty quickly. Now, we are seeing a wick up at the end of the day. We'll see what happens with that, but as of right now, this is telling you, hey, I'm in a pullback. If I cross that center line, we might be seeing something a little bit more dramatic happen going into a negative trend. Okay, so what we really want to pay attention to for a 2-hour is if we ever see it just curl back up and then go positive, right? If this just dips way down and then curls up and goes positive again, well, then we're probably going to see higher prices in the stock market, and we might even set up some cool structure to head up. Now we've created this double top, this baseline up here, this neckline, if you will. So if we do get some kind of drop down and then we're able to build back up over time, I could see us doing something like this: get a left, get a head, get a right shoulder. I think that would be a very good formation to head up from here. So that's how I see it on the 2-hour. But if we go a little bit closer into the 30-minute, this might be saying something a little bit different, right? We're seeing the wick up at the end of the day. So if we wanted to, we actually could make an opposite move. This is kind of, that was your bearish case. This is kind of your bullish case here, which is that 30-minute. Sure, it's going negative. That is not a good sign. This is bearish as of right now, but we're seeing this wick up. So I want to be aware if any kind of move is happening. That would be a 30-minute curling up, positive territory goes into it. All right. That would tell me maybe we're going to do something like this week. Okay. So this is how you read into these indicators. You look at multiple time time frames, or if you're trading based on one, you just want to look back into one that is a little bit tighter for your risk management. But for now, we would say 30-minute curls up. Hey, positive price action, test the high, go make a new one, maybe even hit that weekly expected move. If we make some kind of rapid move, 68% chance we land down if that happens very early on Monday. So we will be live on Monday morning, tomorrow morning, to talk about these stocks with you guys. We look at random stocks too. So if you have a stock that we don't cover on this channel, I do like to look at multiple different stocks. I think it's a lot of fun. It's one of the things I enjoy the most. Very, very cool thing. By the way, I just randomly saw this very cool thing here, the rejection divergence right here. You see the divergence here on the RSI at the same time. Okay, rejection divergence here, and you actually had divergence all the way across over here as well. So we had a triple divergence right here that led to this overall pullback. And then you notice this, what did we create here? That divergence. We talked about this one down here, and then we see that go to the upside. You even got one more lip down to possibly get into a position, and boom, we headed up to the daily expected move for Friday, which was right here. So daily expected moves are very, very useful. A lot of people using them as profit-taking tools. Congratulations to all my subscribers who have learned through this channel how to utilize those daily expected moves. And I appreciate you guys, complimenting and saying thank you for giving away the daily expected moves. I really appreciate it. The Qs, let's do this one backwards, okay? So when you look at the Qs, we see a similar scenario. They almost look identical, right? So the Qs actually went directly up to that weekly expected move. It literally touched it almost by like the penny. So they are very, very useful. So thank you to everyone who came in the live video and said, hey, thanks for giving those daily expected moves. It's really helping with my risk management, with my profit taking. I appreciate that. Here you go. There's some stuff up here that's going on because this could be some kind of double top. But right now, what do we want to pay attention to? The divergence led to a pullback. Awesome. That popped back up, went to a daily expected move. Now we're dropping off. So on the 30-minute, you're pointing down, starting to go negative. This is not a good sign for the Qs. The Qs have a bigger range. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Qs have a bigger monthly range as well for the month of July compared to compared to the SPY. So really it's the individual names. And I'm going to go on Patreon later and make a video for my Patreon members. Links down in the description if you want to join. But I'm going to make a video talking about those monthly ranges because we're seeing high implied volatility in some stocks that make up the Qs that are very important, like Magnificent 7 stocks. But we're seeing some of those Magnificent 7 have very low implied volatility, which could mean that we're going to see some stocks hold up the market a little bit better. So the market might not be able to drop significantly because they're going to use some stocks to go higher and maybe some stocks go lower. One of those with a big implied volatility is Nvidia. So 30-minute though, what do we need to take away from this? It's crossing the center line. That is a negative thing. But if we turn around, we could head to that weekly expected move pretty easily with a 30-minute turnaround, okay? So do I think that is the most probable thing for us to turn around right here? Well, no, the indicator's not telling me that. And the 2 hours not telling me that either. Look how close that is. It just crossed. This is the signal to pay attention to. You're losing all the moving averages here. You really can start to drop from here if you go negative. You really can. So we really have to pay attention to the bottom side daily expected move for Monday, because if this stuff starts to continue, it can get rapid pretty quick. And we do have AMC and GME that could surprise people going on into this week. So we'll pay attention to that as well. Some huge signals confirming for those guys. So that could mean that their collateral could be at risk, and their collateral are stocks within the Qs. Okay. So the short sellers collateral are the stocks that are in the Qs right now. So that is something to be aware of. You could see AMC and GME pump, and then the Qs actually drop off because they're having to get liquidated, right? They're going to get liquidated. They have to pay for the problem. They did some illegal naked shorting, and they should pay for it. And that's what I think. Here you go. This is overall just a pullback signal at this moment, but it is a good signal to, think about. It's good. I don't want to say anything too direct here, but overall it's, hey, this signal is very close to negative territory. There's a high probability that this goes negative, meaning we do head towards a weekly expected move. And maybe we head to that weekly expected move, get some kind of bounce. Maybe that fully recovers. So we really want to pay attention to these shorter time frames, see if any recovery is continuing downside. We continue a negative trend. I'd really like to see a good drop here from the Qs. That would convince us, hey, we are definitely in a negative trend. We'll be watching this live tomorrow for sure. As we look at the daily scale, look at this. The daily scale is saying pullback. Now, does this look like an overall daily pullback yet from this level? Well, no, we haven't really pulled back from this level that much. So I would say at least the 20, which might be right where our daily expected move lines up with Monday. So we'll pay attention to this going into Monday. I think we have a good shot to hit some lower expected move this week, but I don't take trades based on I thinks. I take trades based on my 5 reasons to take a trade. We talk about it in the course. course, just because you think something should happen does not mean it has to happen. You need reasons to take the trade and then manage that risk. We teach you how to manage your trade directly, exactly how to do it. When to say, hey, this thing is going the wrong way on me. There's a lot of risk here. We teach you how to do that in the course. So what are we noticing here? Well, we actually could see something even more dramatic. I'm going to be honest here. I'm just going to give this idea to you. Because this is an overall pullback, we haven't pulled back like dramatically in a long time. I think we actually do have a shot to see some kind of price action that gets us down to this monthly expected move. What that would do is get this close to the center line. If we get close to the center line and we curl up, positive territory, hey, next positive move is coming. Okay, so if we see a positive move come, then we just want to pay attention to, are we making a divergence? Are we making some kind of, lower high? We'll pay attention to those things. I actually think we have a good shot to head to lower levels, then pop all the way back up, see some kind of run like that, and then sometime between August and November, we actually see some kind of major top. So we're paying attention to these things. Going over to Apple, look at this guy saying pullback right now, and this is where having the monthly, weekly expected moves for these stocks is really, really helpful, because if I go into a 2 hour real quick, I'm going to show you guys where that weekly expected move was for last week. It was like, where was it? It was like right here. Okay, so notice we get outside of that weekly expected move. There's a little, I think, 30-minute divergence. Maybe we'll look at that in a second. And that proves to have the weakness there. That's why we pay attention to these levels. What are we doing towards the end of the day? We're getting the same signal that we're seeing in the SPY and the Qs, just a crossing over of the MACD, very close to negative territory. This does mean that the most likely scenario from here, because it's so close to being negative, is the low that we're testing, we could go make a new one because you are in negative territory. So curling around from here would be a little bit more difficult for Apple. Pay attention to your risk. Now, what is the 30-minute saying? Well, the 30-minute's been pretty beat up. It looks like, hey, I'm oversold. Okay, so this is a little bit different because it's pretty oversold at this point. Apple could see some kind of recovery and then pay attention if that's able to turn back down over time. But if this just wants to continue, that would make total sense. I have a weekly expected move to pay attention to for downside, and then maybe that sees another curl up. So pay attention if this curls up. Right now it's pointing negative. There is no reason for me to say that Apple could go up from here based on these signals. The only reason I'm saying it could go up from here is because, hey, it's a little oversold, so maybe we get some kind of relief out of that, but that could just be sideways price action until we want to drop down. So I'm paying attention to this. The 30-minute, what did we notice at the top? Rejection divergence. On the 15-minute, it looks clean, but you see the rejection divergence right there. We see it on the RSI at the same time. We gave that little trend line there. We did all this, and it really, really made sense. So this has been a very, very cool one to watch for now. And it actually even showed us how stocks react when they get outside of those weekly expected moves, because on this week, it was right here. We pile up in front of it, boom. So don't think that weekly expected move works every time. 32% of the time you see something crazy. Right here, we broke to the upside and we just kept going, and then we saw the pullback, then we went again. So you have to pay attention to your risk when using all of these things. You have to know how to trade around them. That's why the course is at such a high discount. Okay, it's at such a high discount. It's only $100 until July 7th. So as we go into Tesla, this is one I really want to pay attention to, guys. It has huge implied volatility for the entire month. It has huge implied volatility for this week. So Tesla's one that's going to probably see some bigger swings, okay? It's seen big swings up, and if you look at all these wicks, right, we've seen big swings in the shorter time frames a ton. What are we noticing about the daily? Well, it's starting to get a little bit towards that 200 for some kind of maybe rejection. So maybe we want to head up from here. We'll see what happens. But if that curls down, we still have to just say pullback. It's still a little bit higher up. Over here, we were saying, ooh, if that goes negative, it's bad. Now we're having to say, hey, this could just be some kind of pullback that then leads to another run in the future. I think that this kind of look would make total sense. It would get us into August, and that would make a lot of sense with those monthly charts. We'll talk about that on Patreon in a little bit once I put out that video. What is the 2 hour telling us right now? Well, it's telling you, hey, you've been pretty cooked for a little bit of time here, for a couple of days, so maybe now's the time for some kind of pullback. So if this does cross over, and the reason I'm going to say, yes, this is bullish, but if it does cross over, this would overall mean pullback. This is something that says, hey, don't chase. That's what your indicator is telling you here. It's like, I'm really, really up high. I'm overbought. Don't chase me based on a 2 hour chart. And then maybe we're going to see some kind of pullback. And this would be a better time than, even if we just did this, buying right here is better than doing it right here. That's just something you need to learn about these MACDs and when to actually take an entry. Okay, so the 2-hour looks like we could get a pullback soon, but what's the 30-minute telling us? Well, the 30-minute told us there's some divergence up here. Okay, so there is divergence up here. Maybe it wants to get to its sell zone because overall this is just a bearish contrarian, bearish contrarian indication, which would tell me, hey, if this thing curls up, positive territory, positive move, and maybe want to get to that zone. Very interesting enough here. I'm going to check it real quick, but I'm pretty sure that Tesla's weekly expected move is within our sell zone up here. The upside is within our sell zone. So maybe we do want to see one move up like this, create a little triple divergence, and then that thing sends us negative. So we'll be paying attention to Tesla going into tomorrow very closely because this 30-minute could curl up and that could be a good sign. But a triple divergence on the 30-minute near that weekly expected move might mean, hey, this 2-hour is about to see a little bit more dramatic pullback, maybe even down to 180.92. We'll pay attention to that going forward. And the monthly expected moves are pretty big for Tesla. So Amazon, what are we noticing here? 2 hours saying pullback. 2 hours saying pullback as of right now. Sure, 30-minute, we'll look at that in a second. But for now, I just want you to see 2 hours says, hey, this thing is going to pull back. It's going to move sideways, some kind of sideways price action, or going to pull down to lower levels to gain some buyers before that swings back up. I am going to be talking about most of things like Amazon, if they have this look, in a way that they could turn back up because we don't have divergences, and divergences do signal a dying out in momentum. So is the momentum dead here? Not necessarily according to the 2 hour. Now let's look at the 30-minute. This one here, very close to the center line. So if you're going to see positivity from Amazon, early in the week would be the time to do it because that 30-minute crosses back up. Maybe it creates some kind of double top, telling you if you were taking that 2 hour trade, hey, this wasn't the right timing. Maybe this one is. That's the way we talk about it in the course. And that's just a little hint of how we manage our risk. Okay, we manage our trade. Very, very good stuff in that. Tons of compliments on that section. Very helpful area. And if that's a little confusing, we even have an area for investing as well. So Amazon here looks like 30-minute getting cooked, going to the downside, going negative. So you have to talk negatively about it. But if we turn back around, we're right by that center line. We're right by positive territory. So we can see some kind of double top, maybe even a little bit higher. So look out for a 30-minute divergence up there. That would be a fantastic trade setup for Amazon. Now, Nvidia, a little bit different because we've been moving sideways a lot lately. We've been moving sideways a lot, and the hourly was able to cross over right here. So you notice this, our little zone that we created here. Someone asked me to create a zone, and this is it. This is the only level that I really could find first place where we could see a bounce. And guess what? We get a bounce from it. Very good look there. But the hourly looks like, hey, that just crossed over. That's saying downside is the most likely option from here. But I just want you to notice our zone is very good. Look at us trying to keep up above that zone. So we're paying attention to it. Hourly curled over. So the most probable thing right here is that Nvidia ends up seeing some downside. So I'd be paying attention to my weekly expected move downside early on in the week. If it's not going to keep going down, well, then this 2 hour won't cross over, right? So that 30-minute will cross up. We'll see the 2 hour go positive, and maybe it wants to see a positive move. So we just have to react based on what is actually happening. Just know that Nvidia is the overall stock that is the most, probably has the most collateral, right? It's the most used as collateral. That's why you see it rigged up and up and up while the rig moves for AMC and GME go down and down and down. They're using Nvidia. We've said this for a month and a half now. They're using Nvidia, and then it's coming out now. I love that the things we talk about are starting to come out all over Twitter and things like that, because it means we're paying attention to the right things. But what do we notice from here? Okay, Nvidia is most likely the stock that they are using in order to fight GME and AMC. And if they can't fight it any longer and they have to pay for something, this is their collateral. So we could see that drop off dramatically. And this stock right here is this alone. If you pay attention to Nvidia at all, if you want to try to trade Nvidia at all, you should join the Patreon, because the monthly expected move from this is bigger this month. It is bigger than last month. Okay, it is bigger than last month, and we didn't see it really hit those monthly ranges too often. So I think we're going to hit one of those monthly ranges, and that is why I think this is very important if you're trading it, to get those monthly ranges. Know where your risk is for the entire month of July, because if we make a rapid move like this, that could end up dropping off very quickly, as there is a huge implied volatility for Nvidia going into the month of July. AMD, this one here, we did really well with just paying attention to our trend line, seeing that cross up right here. And we said, hey, this means, even with the red bar, this still means the most probable move is to the upside. So we're paying attention to it. We're taking back 160.83. Where do I think we run into a little bit of trouble if we want to see some downside? Well, we got to look at a 30-minute because that's saying pullback right now. So if we do see the upside, let's talk bullish first. If we do see the upside, I'm paying attention to 169.58. I think that level has been pretty good to us. We can pay attention to it, and that can hold as some sort of resistance at this point. And if we're going to break down further, I think we just hover right around that 160.83 unless something more dramatic happens. As of right now, the MACD is telling you we are in an overall pullback that could just turn right back up in positive territory. So I'd be paying attention to that for AMD. Meta dropped off dramatically, and this is one that we were talking about because of the 2-hour divergence. Okay, the 2-hour divergence here was so freaking clear, and so you're looking for weakness in this overall push in order to take a trade. Usually right there is probably where we find the point on the 30-minute. We notice the 2-hour divergence. Boom, that is dramatic. So overall though, this is still a pullback. I know that's crazy to say, but this is still telling you pullback, but this is saying, hey, divergence is there so the trend can reverse. That is when I really like to take my plays, is get into it a little bit early. But overall, you would say, hey, this has a good shot to go negative based on the MACD, giving me the weakness in momentum and saying downside is an option here. Meta does have a pretty high implied volatility, guys, okay, for the month of July. I want you to be aware of that. So this move could be dramatic, and we'll see. But right now, it's just saying 2-hour pullback. So if that turns up at any time towards positive territory, you're going to see more positivity. If it doesn't, crosses the center line, keeps going, you're probably going to see something a little bit more dramatic, okay? So we're paying attention to our monthly expected moves for Meta, especially the downside as of right now with that bar. So doesn't look good on the daily scale. What are we noticing? Well, weirdly enough, you have flat divergences on the daily scale as well. It's just not the most clear, but you do have it there, and you do have it there on the RSI and MACD. So actually, Meta is actually one of the stocks telling you I could see some dramatic downside. Maybe it wants to go retest all the way down towards 453.08. That's so crazy to say, but it really could happen in the month of July. So we're paying attention to it. It just really, I know I'm just encouraging you to get the Patreon a bunch, but it really is super helpful for your trading, especially if you're trading on some bigger time frames to get those monthly ranges. And on the shorter time frames, the weekly ranges, very, very important for Meta. Now, I believe there's something about Microsoft. Like I said, I'm doing these videos in one shot, so it's a little bit more difficult nowadays, but I believe there's a solid signal that this daily is going to cross over. I think it's a 2-hour divergence. You see, oh, there it is right there. So dramatically down on the divergence here, going up towards the trend line. Okay, so this was a huge, huge signal. This is one that I really was looking at taking, and I just want to see what happens as far as Monday goes, if they're going to make one more rigged move up. But this right here is screaming weakness. This is saying weakness and momentum. This is saying weakness and momentum at the same time with this high up here. So you're seeing a lot of weakness and momentum on a 2-hour. So if that starts to go negative, if it goes negative, right? We have to say if it goes negative, this daily will be crossing over. This daily will be crossing over, and you might, stop at the 20. We got to pay attention to that first, but you might go all the way down to the 50, somewhere around 423. Okay, 423 looks pretty likely if we're able to pull back over time. And then if we're going to pull back more dramatically, well, we'll pay attention to our bottom trend line. We're kind of in like a channel that's slowly turning into a wedge here for Microsoft. So I wanted to point that out. Finally, we get to AMC and GME. AMC making a great move. And if you've been a part of this channel, you've been subscribed, first of all, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for joining the Patreon, because you've had these levels the whole time. This is the level. This is why I'm saying when implied volatility was really high, you noticed everyone was paying attention to it. Market makers are paying attention to it. Twitter was blowing up, paying attention to it. Everyone thought the big move was coming. And I told everyone on Twitter, I said, this is not correct. Higher implied volatility tells you two things. One, it tells you there's just going to be bigger swings. It does not tell you that that has to be upside. And I made that very clear, and we paid attention to the signals. And then implied volatility started to go down. So a higher implied volatility actually tells me that the market maker, the person who prices these options, the algorithms that price these options, control these options, they know that something big is expected. So if something big is expected, it is the perfect time for short sellers to fight the stock, correct? So as that gets thinner and thinner and thinner, which we are right now, this would tell me that the market makers out in the algorithms, they do not expect a big move from AMC, not as big as the previous few weeks. So that tells me 555, great level to pay attention to. If you want to see something crazy, the daily scale, you're closing above all the moving averages except for the 200. You start to take that back, you cross up on this MACD, you can see something crazy. Gamma squeeze first. If that leads into a short squeeze, then you're probably going to see AMC go nuts, okay? So these are very important to pay attention to, but does it have to happen? No, there is a bottom side range. So that tells me it easily could go down to that range as well. So I need to pay attention to a 2 hour. If this 2 hour curls down at any time, guys, that means it is not the moment, okay? So the 2 hour curls down, it's right by negative territory. That could mean downside is the option. I'm glad that we pointed out 437. It was a great level to pay attention to. We gapped above it right there. It's awesome. But if this starts to curl over, we could start to break this low, go make a new one, maybe even create some kind of divergence down here for the 2 hour. That would be a great signal to get in early. It really would. It would tell you momentum is dying out to the downside. And if momentum is dying out to the downside, that means short sellers are getting tired. It means they're probably running out of money. So what do we want to pay attention to in the nearest time frame? The 30-minute. The 30-minute was able to curl up again at the end of the day. So what did I tell you? I said the 30-minute, I looked back, I did my research on these stocks as far as GME and AMC goes. AMC did this. AMC, when the big moment happened, it never curled over on the 30-minute until it reached like $300 something. And then it curled over and then it popped again and it made a divergence. Okay, so I'm looking for a 30-minute divergence at the high, and that most likely is the perfect sell point if this thing is going to be forced back down. Am I going to sell all of my stuff? No, I'm holding AMC, I'm holding GME. I believe in the problem. I believe in the fight against the 1% right now because I know that the market is manipulated. So I will be holding stock the entire time and just doing an option position to make money out of it. So AMC, that's what you got to look for. The 30 minutes positive, the 2 hour is positive, and the daily just needs to curl up, and that'd be a good sign. So GME, same thing for this one. You have the exact level where you know, hey, a gamma squeeze is high potential to happen, and this has gotten lower and lower and lower, and now it is the lowest I have seen it in a while now. Okay, so now it's not 300% or something. Now it's only like 100%, which tells me they expect a little bit less from GME. So if this thing sees something crazy happen, it can go into a gamma squeeze easier this week than last week. So pay attention to that as AMC is making that good move. Now for GME, this is a different story. 30 minutes going negative. That means not the moment. Now we could just see a gap up and it just goes. And if that gap up happens, we see a green bar, we hold above this level, you might just see that moment happen. But as of right now, the indicator is telling you negative in negative territory. So that just tells me, hey, downside is the most likely option until this guy turns back up. It's still very close to the center line. It's not the worst news ever. The 2 hour, this is something interesting here. The 2 hour hasn't curled over yet. Okay, so GME was a little bit different than AMC because it trades in the night market, right? In the what am I trying to say? The aftermarket, the night market. And overall, this one here, the 2 hour crossed up once and that thing just went. And then by the morning, it was dropping down to lower levels. So just pay attention to GME past regular market hours, because the 2 hour right now is curled up. But notice this about the 2 hour, not able to go positive. Okay, so if they're going to fight against this one, maybe we need to make a stronger base, and we'll pay attention to that for some kind of 2 hour divergence. But right now it's still curled up, so it's still saying it's bouncing. We'll see if that's able to turn things around early on. And then obviously the daily side is the most important here, saying, hey, if this thing turns up, if you see a green bar here, this is what we said right here on this bar. I said, hey, a big move, daily momentum can take over. And guess what? The next day, boom, we got a big move. Okay, so if this starts to cross on a daily, we cross up on a daily, you're above the 200, you're above all the moving averages, boom, a swing trader would love this. If we're going to cross on the daily, we're probably already going to be above that gamma, that level that they don't expect. The level that something crazy can happen. This is your 32% zone, so you got to get there in order to see something bullish. And so if this daily curls up, you're probably going to see something crazy from GME unless the short sellers step in. Now, real quick, the reason that the market actually could be heading lower, just pay attention to the VIX. You're seeing the rejection on the daily. I wanted to point this out, the rejection on the daily. We said around this area here, we said probably the worst case scenario for volatility to come back in this market, so the worst case scenario for the market itself and going to lower levels, is if we make a higher low. because this would say, hey, we're not even making a lower low to go higher. We're not even making some kind of divergence. We're not crossing over on this MACD. We're actually going to hold up a little bit better. So you notice the closing low here was never able to close below the previous one over here at the last one. So this is what I've been paying attention to. I've been looking at my 2-hour chart and going, hey, this looks pretty good. And look at this, at the very, very end of the day, volatility said, hey, I'm about to bounce. Now, it's not necessarily saying, hey, I have to go positive. I have to break through here. I have to go to 20. You got to get to 20 to see something crazy. But for now, you would say, hey, volatility says it's bouncing. And I don't think that's a good sign going into Monday. So the main takeaway for today's video is pay attention to your signals very, very closely this week. Weirdly enough, we only have 4 trading days, and you would figure a week like 4th of July, we wouldn't get a lot of volume, but a lot of the implied volatility is actually going up, and I think we actually could see some big volume moves this week, so pay attention. That's the overall case here. If you need those weekly moves, we got you over on Patreon, and if you need to learn about this stuff, we got you with the course on a super good discount right now. So pay attention to your weekly expected moves, pay attention to AMC and GME, because something crazy could happen this week, and if it doesn't, then we're just paying attention to the signals, and we will know if the moment is happening or is not, because we have the right levels and we're paying attention to our momentum indicators. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. I wish you guys nothing but luck for the rest of the week with your trading, and I hope to see you guys live at my live video tomorrow morning. All right, peace.